Hello and welcome to the Forgeborn Finishing School. I'm Kckid and I'll be analyzing Forgeborn battles to help take your game to the next level. Welcome back. We're excited to be here post Gen Con with the Forgeborn Finishing School. We had a bit of a hiatus, had to take a break. Figuring out video editing ends up being a whole lot of work. Took quite a bit of time away from my personal life. And so we're just trying to figure out how we can evolve the channel into something that takes a little bit less time but still provides the same great content. And so with me, as a lot of times, is Koar on the stream today.
Hey everybody.
And so hopefully, this is a format that our fans or our viewers like, and we always appreciate feedback, but we're going to try to move into something that takes just a little bit less time, and hopefully we can continue to put out content at the same level, shooting for that once a week schedule, but we'll see as we go forward. So Greg, you and I went down to Gen Con. We did the exhibition hall. We did the storyline event with Stoneblade. Got to try out the digital app, which was really awesome. And then watching the stream earlier. And really, we got to hang out with all of, what I would say, not all of, but the vast majority of the best players in Solforge Fusion to date, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun just meeting and interacting. I mean, Wednesday night, hanging out. I think every night we pretty much hung out, went out and got food, played board games. So it was a lot of fun. Like that's what going to these conventions is what I look forward to.
Right, and we talked about it. I think post Indy, post Denver, that is the best part, is getting to meet and hang out with everyone. What we thought we would do is kind of go through the world's tournament, if you will. Probably just really focus on the top 4 lists and break those combos down that we see in there and some of the lists, and see, for beginners and advanced players alike, if we can point out some things that we see in the deck that we saw used there to great effect, and so to give some players ideas for what they could fuse, how they could kind of emulate those decks, right? Net decking is a very difficult thing to do in Solforge Fusion with the algorithmically created decks. So what you really have to do is kind of pick out pockets of combinations and see how you can emulate those or replicate them either in the exact same fashion or in a very similar one. So looking at the World's Tournament here, we can go to placings. And big shout out to Sam Nathanson. He streams on Nathis Gaming, ended up being the world champion 2023 Solforge Fusion. And then the runner-up, Matt Stanky, a.k.a. Mundungu, on the Discord. 2 names that, really don't need any introduction. Very well known in the community. Coming in third was Nate, the Weekend, who runs all of the weekly 5th cycle tournaments. And then coming in fourth was Brendan Walters, who is a very solid player, has shown up in quite a few tournaments, and had a strong showing for himself there.
Yeah, the the whole just top cut, and even just beyond the top cut, was just filled with a lot of just stacked really good players. So it's a very powerful tournament, big tournament, a lot of great players and great decks. So we kind of kept tabs on it while we were trudging through the exhibition hall. So yeah, looks like a great tournament.
Yeah, just to kind of cover out. So we're probably going to dig just into the top 4 lists, but coming in 5th was Gorman Namrog on the Discord, and you got Mike Godges, Cardboard Newt, who still is using the name Sam there, even though he claims to not own it, having lost that to the world champ. Eli, More Than Moose, Forge Guardian there. Even the people that did make the cut, all of these very strong players, names that we pretty much all know. So with that being said, let's just jump into the lists. And, one tenet of Forgeborn Finishing School, we always try to value the viewer's time. So let's dig into this and start away.
Yeah, we'll take a look at Brendan Walters' deck, piloting Rumble Spark with the Dark Heart Sorcerer. So again, you kind of mentioned, you can, looking at a ways to emulate or use this deck, those are the two big focus cards that you'd want to look for. Um, in that regard, everybody knows the Rumble Spark and the Dark Heart being able to trigger off when the Rumble Spark dies, goes back to the energy, flips back over. But besides the Dark Heart Sorcerer, the deck also has just a lot of other great ways to utilize the combos or get it out. When we have a Vampiric Walker, which will allow you to get the Rumble Spark embodiment going. The creeper makes either your opponent have to make a choice, either taking the damage or getting rid of a creature. And a lot of times, if you're just playing a creeper, a lot of times people will just take the damage rather than get rid of the creature. When you have the energy on the field, it's a much difficult choice to make. Stampeding Stonefist, another great creature because it's an elemental, doesn't have to be in the lane with breakthrough, so another good way to just triggering the Rumble Spark embodiment as well. Another big highlight of the deck is the Elementalist Rituals, probably one of the best cards to pair in your Rumble Spark energy deck with the Dark Heart Sorcerer. It's just a lot of value there.
Yeah, I think you see all the top Rumble Spark decks. Just about every single one of them has this card. The value is just immense.
Huge. And Thunder Crash Field works really well in this deck as well. Being able to put the Rumble Spark energy in there, and so every spell you're getting it trigger. It's just more damage on top of what you're already doing. And then the spell suite of purple is fantastic. I mean, Dissonant Siphon, Circe's Call, Grave Pact works really well with Rumble Spark energy. Virixian Praise is also just another great card. So a lot of just really solid, good value cards in here, along with cards that you just want to see. Like Scourge Hydra is one of my favorite purple cards. So you have that in the deck as well. So Lightning Tamer is a great card.
Yeah, every card here is just screaming out value, right? There's just a few that maybe don't, but I do want to pop back to Grave Pact for a minute. So the reason that works so well with the Rumble Spark embodiment, Greg mentioned how it turns back into the energy. Essentially, anything that's allowing you to sacrifice your own creature for benefit is immensely useful in a Dark Heart Sorcerer Rumble Spark energy deck, because the second you kill that embodiment, when Dark Heart Sorcerer is on the board, you'll put the Rumble Spark energy right behind the Dark Heart Sorcerer. That's a spell played, activating the Dark Heart Sorcerer to drain your opponent's life, and then flipping embodiment back in full health. And then, he mentioned Thunder Crash Field. This is a very interesting deck, in that normally when you're playing Rumble Spark, Dark Heart Sorcerer, a lot of players don't want to put extra Exalts on the board, because those Exalts, when they're on the board, can kind of limit where you would want to put your Dark Heart Sorcerer, because when your Rumble Spark dies, you have to put the energy back in a lane. And so if you had your Dark Heart Sorcerer in a lane that has a Thunder Crash Field in it, then you would have to put it back into that lane and maybe destroy your Thunder Crash Field if you really wanted that one. So it is an interesting choice just to keep in mind. If you flood your board with Exalts playing these Rumble Spark decks, it's you may end up losing some of them because you need to put the energy in an advantageous position.
Yeah, we can move over then to Weekend's deck. You want to go over and talk about Drawn's Throng?
Yeah, absolutely. So Weekend was running what I love to call essentially a very similar to a DJ Drix deck. The Drix really does a lot of work in these types of decks, especially if you can get it up to level 2 and level 3. Really helps seal down games with big creatures. But one of the most important parts of this deck is the Steel Rosetta. And so oftentimes, if you find a Steel Rosetta, and you're looking for a couple of, I guess Forgeborn abilities, but one of them is more important than others if you're trying to run this style of deck, and that's Enhance. Oftentimes it's best to have it at 3, but playing it at 2 isn't necessarily a bad thing as well. What it does is it helps you skip past those disadvantageous levels of Krogius. Right, so with Enhanced Cycle 2, you can upgrade your level 1 Krogius straight to the level 2, play the level 2 as a 0-15 and gain 7 health, and then you got the big bad 30-30 Plant Boy ready to go for Cycle 3. It's the idea there. It's a way, kind of like Army Commander, to cheat past those levels. Having Inspire on the Steel Rosetta gives him access to Bark Skin on Oros, which in this deck I would say is probably not the most beneficial ability, especially not having any real armor synergizing creatures, no Forge Play Yeti, something like that. But anyways, giving 2 creatures 8 armor this turn, although isn't the best level 3 ability, isn't useless by any means, and probably helped keep some creatures on the board, especially Drix if you're trying to keep that creature on the board. And then in the rest of the blue, this is what I would really just call a toolbox deck, and that's kind of what blue brings to the table outside of those things we just talked about. So you get the Stabilizing Specimen, getting to return a creature to its printed attack and health. Suppressing Inventor, playing a Gizmo is good, but really we're here for the suppressing, and that's you may destroy a creature with 3 attack or less. At level 2 it's 5 or less, and level 3 is 8 or less. So this is a little bit of Rumble Spark insurance, being able to clear out the Dark Heart Sorcerer at each level if you keep this on pace and draw it at the right times. And then Synapse Tinker provides 2 little pieces of utility. Synapse being able to also potentially cheat you past certain levels with that Krogius or however. And then, but the other one is just the minion destruction. So level 1, you get to destroy a minion. Level 2, 2 minions. Level 3, destroy all your enemy's minions. So against the right decks can be very, very helpful. So this green deck is, a Mantis, essentially Krogius deck, which is what a lot of people would see it for first offhand, and those go very well with the deck with Enhance, especially getting that extra action of Enhance with the Mantis. And then Krogius was obviously, I would say, probably a requirement when he was building this deck. But this card right here, Magnivorous Basher, I have to say, I didn't get to watch a lot of Nate's match, but I bet this was one of the unsung heroes. The Basher is probably my favorite Forge creature base, just because it's decent stat line and it has breakthrough, and then everything else on top of that is just extra. Magnivorous, we have found, is a very good Forge word in this game, because a lot of decks are revolving around playing free spells. Right, we already talked about the Rumble Spark. If it dies and turns into energy, that's a spell. Your Magnivorous Basher just got a little bit bigger. And at level 3, it's not just a little bit bigger. It's plus 10 attack on a creature with breakthrough. So that's pretty monstrous there. Batterhide, a little bit of creature control to remove abilities for the turn. And then the Splicer, the ability to get an Oakfather minion in the first cycle is pretty huge. But pairing Troutthorn Splicer into a Drix deck, getting those upgrade mechanics going based off the replace is pretty strong. I guess I shouldn't say upgrade. I mean, stat increase mechanics off the replace is pretty strong. A couple of spells that I just would really want to point out is Electronet. It seems in the meta that increasing stats is pretty prevalent, and so being able to just reduce stats for free is a pretty phenomenal card. So Electronet, almost always value in this current meta, but the competitive level is very rare that you would not get to play it for free. And then Warmonger mod is one that I would also like to point out. So if you get it past that first level, which is not the greatest, just playing a Gizmo minion, right? That Hibernating Mantis would allow you to skip right past the first level, and then every time after that, you're just setting up free creature plays with Gizmos. Very powerful with Drix on the board, creating additional stat buffs.
Yeah. What else I could see being helpful in this deck is you have 2 refreshing creatures. I mean, with the Batterhide and the Hunter, and with the ability to generate Gizmos, that could be a good source of life gain throughout the deck to keep you floating up for a while. So I think, between the 2 refreshing and the Splicer pairs pretty well with the ability to get minions in the blue half. And so I would imagine that those refreshings probably came in pretty handy in some of those matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a lot of good, solid synergies going on in this deck. And when I look at pairing these kinds of decks, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say the first thing to catch Weekend's eyes was the Steel Rosetta abilities, and then Drix, this bevy of toolbox cards, Stabilizing, Suppressing, Tinker, Electronet, and then he probably went and looked, okay, what's the best Krogius deck with replacement synergies inside of it that I could fit into it. So that would be a good way to link into building a deck just like this. So that Krogius and Mantis helped build it. The refreshing, the Shroudthorn Splicers for the replacement effects. But then that Magnivorous Basher is probably just an extra card that you don't really build a deck around, but when it's there, it's like, oh, okay, that's a very, very strong card.
Yeah, against some matchups, that could be a closer if you don't draw Krogius. So,
Yep. Okay, we'll move into the second place deck. Moving on to Mundungo's deck, which he has named Nova Goats.
nice. Yeah. So again, another Rumblespark Energy, Rumblespark Embodiment deck with the Dark Heart Sorcerer. Again, just a solid combo to build off of. That's your platform. Great creatures in there. Gloom Reaper Hag, big fan of that. It's just a well statted. It's good underdrop later as well with the 7 attack. Can usually punch above its weight if you need to. Indomitable Fiend has its uses. Shambling Spectre, great card to also trigger the Rumblespark Energy Embodiment. 1 for the stealth, 2 for the shambling if you put it in the lane. So good work there with
This
that card.
Shambling Spectre, sorry to interrupt. The few matches I was able to jump in and watch. This guy on the board is an absolute menace. Hard to kill because of the stealth, and you're right, can trigger Rumble Spark. This was a really cool card to see in action, just because it's not your typical Shambler you expect to see.
Yeah, great, just great value. It's a good keyword on the Spectre. Necromancer, tormenting at that. So, you mean destroying an enemy minion can be huge. Having it on there, and then just the Necromancer is just a great card. Vampiric Demon, again, another way. You know, you're seeing these in these top decks, multiple ways to be able to trigger the Rumblespark energy, and so the Vampiric's got that as well. And then moving into the red creatures, Charger Mammoth's another way to get that trigger on the Rumblespark energy because it has breakthrough, it has aggressive. If you need to drop a creature on top of it to make that creature even bigger with the aggressive and breakthrough, that's again going to allow you to give you another option in triggering the Rumblespark energy. Towards Colossus, just a great value card. I like that one. Chaining Mystic, free plays or free spells, mobility. Going in there, I mean, you got some your Santi Heartseeker and Vortex. So again, ways to increase stats and do damage, always good. And again, the other card that we were talking about when we move over to the spells, that Elementalist Ritual, just super powerful in an Elemental deck. So a lot of value there. And then again, we see the Grave Pact in red, and then just value cards, Cersei's Call, Soul Reap, as well.
One thing about this Elementalist Ritual and what Mundungu was able to do with it, I've played against this deck before. It's very, very, very powerful. Is this Sunder's Frost Blast at cycle 3. Deal 4 damage to each enemy creature. When this is paired with Elementalist Ritual, he gets to choose 2 of these things. So non-combat damage you deal this turn is increased by 2. So when that one's selected, and let's say it's a level 2, let's say it's 1 behind curve, it's not on curve even, increased damage by 3. So now when this is activated, that's dealing 7 damage to all creatures. And if that's not enough to kill everything, he can then choose the third option to deal 2 damage to all non-elemental creatures, deal 3 to all non-elemental creatures, which is actually 6. So that's up to 13 damage to all non-elemental creatures and 7 to all, 6 to non-elemental creatures and 7 just to the enemy's creatures. Absolutely has cleared boards with this, which is pretty cool to see. And not just small creatures. I mean, just cleared big creatures off the board.
Yeah, we need some work done. That card does it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one thing I want to make note of is, I didn't notice this before, but Stampede making an appearance in not 1, but 2 top 4 decks.
I love that card. I don't know why. I mean, when set 2 came out, I played in a Seal event, and that card was just so fun to play with. I mean, I also had a Feather Sword in my deck, but so Stampede and Soul Devourer, I just they kind of have a little place in my heart both those cards from that event. It was so fun, and yeah, I think that's great.
Funny thing is, so both of these decks only have one dinosaur.
Yeah.
Um, the Tortoise Colossus you mentioned before, so that's the dinosaur in Mundungu's deck. At Fuse Fest, I was playing up against Gorman, who made top 8 at Worlds here. And I was playing a dinosaur deck at Fuse Fest. And I think I had the Patriarch in play. And, any dinosaur that comes in gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And so I flipped the Tortoise Colossus down and I started increasing its stats. And this was set to, it's brand new. So Gorman leans over and goes, "That's a dinosaur?" And he didn't even ask. He just, we'd known each other for a while. He just kind of grabs a card, picks it up, looks at it, flips it back over to the other side of the table, and just says, "They're being generous." Just so you talk about these moments where cards have a soft spot in your heart. Like that's a funny moment that's going to stick with me for a long time. Because I agree that doesn't look like a dinosaur.
A frog thing. I don't know. Yeah.
But there it is, Dino. So yep, there's our number 2 deck, and one other thing is that I would point out with the Sunder that Mundungu uses, summon the Swarm at 2, play up to 2 Spell Sprite minions. A lot of times this can just be spammed when on the Forge, when you're having a hard time getting Rumble Spark out, and you have a couple of like if you have one elemental that's unblocked, and the opponent only has one other turn, one other action phase in the turn. You could flip this to throw 2 Spell Sprites out there. They're only going to do 1 damage, but if they hit the opponent, you're going to bring Rumble Spark on the board.
Yeah, it's a very, very good play. Like, you can just get enough creatures out. They can't block them all or deal with them all. You're going to get one through, and so, yeah, no.
Yep. Okay, so moving into Sam's deck, Nathis. This is a, quote-unquote Grurple deck, which, Necreum Utera. And he's got a lot of things that I think most people would look at and say, that's good, right? But not a lot of it is going to scream out and say, whoa, right? Except for just a couple pieces. And one of those, my absolute favorite, is the Corrupt Drone. And I'm sure plenty of people love this card as well. I had the pleasure to talk about it on the Charge Plated podcast when they did their March Madness bracket. I got to speak about Corrupt Drone, and my thoughts on it. Always been really impressed with it, but really the bottom line of the thing that is absolutely most impressive to me is the stat line. A 3/8 with stealth in the first cycle is just really hard to get rid of, and then the drone just compounds by giving you value after value after value. But then, so the Forgeborn itself that Nathis is using is Cersei, and this is pure value every step of the way. Cycle 2 is Death Touch, Cycle 3 is Life Drain, which could potentially remove a creature, gain you some health, and then the Army Commander at Cycle 4. Since the beginning of this game, people have often debated Cycle 3 or Cycle 4 Army Commander, and I've always thought, hey, Cycle 3 is probably the safe bet, probably the consistent way to go, but Army Commander at 4 has the highest ceiling if you can get it off right away. Because with a Mantis and a Forge Seal, you could still use it in Cycle 3. And it's just more...
Yeah, so he's got both of them in this deck.
Yeah. Yep. Those... So kind of taking a roundabout way here when I said there's not a ton of things that make you go, whoa, but say it's all really good. The last piece that makes you go, whoa, when you see it all together is that Forge Seal, Mantis, and Army Commander at 4. Right, we're getting used to seeing these kinds of things kind of float their way to the top. And this deck, I think, just had all the things to kind of do it consistently. Because with that drone upgrade mechanics, you also have the Necromancer, which allows him to get free upgrades throughout the game. And then the very powerful, let's just play free cards from our discard pile. So not only does he have the Army Commander at 4 innate Forgeborn ability, can use it with the Mantis and the Forge Seal, but also if Necromancer gets up to Cycle 3, he can play other things from his discard pile as well. And then looking down through here, it's all just very strong cards. Polymorpher, we saw, this was the play that removed Rumble Spark from the game in the finals. Got it up to level 3, replaced it with a Wisp. Replacing it doesn't destroy it, transform it, so there it goes from the game.
Yeah, he's also just great value having the Mystical on there as well. It's just an extra body on the board.
Yep, 2 for 1, never a bad thing. One of the things I would say is probably a not often played card in the deck is Aspirian Steelplate. That's nothing against that card. It's a great card, but in this deck, it's outshined, I think, by quite a bit. Abyssal Drake, also probably not played a lot, but when you draw it on the 3rd cycle and they only have 1 creature, or 1 creature's going to survive, Abyssal's always a good forge word to have in a deck. Bone Scythe Reaver, I've often called this thing one of the best underdrops in the game. I couldn't tell you how many times I've destroyed a beefed up Oak Father with a level 1 of these guys in the 4th cycle. So the Walker, not a bad card. Tithian Dreadmaw, also not a bad card. Probably not used a ton in this deck, I would say. Botanimate gives a little bit of, again, Rumble Spark insurance to some degree, but you do have to get it leveled up all the way. And it's really just decent removal for Utera. One card that probably does see some action every once in a while is Lead the Charge, giving a creature +6 to allow it to ready it. This, in conjunction with a level 3 Necromancer, is a great underdrop, being able to play multiple cards in a turn.
Not to mention with the Mantis and Forge Seal, reusing those as well.
Yep, and you've had some experience with that. I've had some experience with you using that against me for multiple Darkforge strains, so phenomenal pairing there. Circe's Call, I think, honestly, pound for pound, could be the best spell in the game. That's just my opinion, but we're seeing this spell particularly show up in plenty of top tier decks. I would put this on par with like Elementalist Ritual right now.
Yeah, it certainly has allowed me to close out games or win games that I shouldn't have.
And then just Dizzying Siphon's Wrath Will, so more free cards potentially, which just really goes into the upgrade mechanic. So this deck, its cycle 1 and 2 can be strong, but sometimes might feel a little light or a little slow. But boy, just hang on, because cycle 3 and 4, this deck just screams,
Explodes.
Takes off. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a shambling creature in there for the matches when you need to use it. And I think that Necrotic Walker probably gets quite a bit of play as well in this deck. It's just a really high value card in this deck with the Necrotic in there. Like being able to just, again, this deck explodes in cycle 3 and 4. So being able to slow down a lane can be huge. So you're dropping down a blocker, it dies, you got a blocker again for the next turn. That's a free card play essentially. And then also you could even just be getting rid of a creature, and with the -2. I really like the Walker and I really like the Necrotic. So I think having those put into here gives you more of a reason to play the Walker, even though he's just low attack. But I'd like to hear Samus or Nathan's thoughts on this, how he feels about this card. I feel like it's really good in this deck.
Yeah, and so I have heard already that the Charge Plated crew is going to be interviewing Sam. Wouldn't surprise me if he ends up on the 5th cycle. So I'm also excited to hear his breakdown of the deck. But Necrotic has again and again shown up to be valuable, especially in these decks that just need to kind of slow the game down and hang on. So I think you're 100% right. At Denver in the finals when I played you, a Necrotic creature in my hand gave me the only chance to beat you had you not, drawn one of 2 cards or whatever. Without the Necrotic in my hand, I had no chance. So Necrotic just puts a lot of interesting wrinkles into your game plan. Being able to sacrifice your own creature and get a creature there back, those types of things, or a little bit of insurance. If your opponent's off Forge with a very big creature, you throw a Necrotic in front of the lane. Now they got to kill 2 things to get that thing to punch through. So, yeah, very good points. So that was, just a hopefully quick breakdown of the top 4. Would love to hear if any viewers out there have questions, or what our thoughts are on certain combinations in those decks, or in any of the decks in Worlds, or any questions of what happened at Worlds. Throw something in the comments, however you like. I'll reiterate, one of my favorite things to do in this game is help people to fuse decks or find pairs. I know that the Charge Plated podcast does their sommelier, where you can recommend decks to them, and they'll try to make a pair for you. BitCycle does something similar. I love to do it as well. You just feel free to DM me on Discord, and I love to talk about fusing decks. So, that being said, I think that's all we have for Worlds, and now we can go on to what is possibly the most exciting part of the the show here today. We were given a spoiler card from Set 3 to release. I have already taken a quick peek at it, of course, but Greg has not. So this is going to be, his first time getting to see the card. So we're going to go with his reactions first, and then after that, I'll give my thoughts. What I will say is I think it's a very simple and very cool card, and I'm very interested to see how it's played. But with that being said, let's go ahead and reveal the card.
All right, so Crypthaunter, is that a 1/1/1/1 13/13? Okay, all right. Creature spirit. When this is destroyed, the enemy player destroys one of their creatures with. When this is destroyed, the enemy player destroys one of the creatures with decreased health. Okay. So, likely the one that damaged it, if anything. When this is destroyed, the enemy player destroys one of their creatures with decreased health. Okay. Crypthaunter deploy, reanimate your 1 and 2 star Crypthaunter.
Yeah. That is sweet.
I mean, it's basically, unless it's just getting in front of a level 1 Krogius, it's just always going to trade. Like, it's just a 1-for-1 trade. The problem, I guess the problem I see with it is that this is interesting. This is definitely better off Forge on the last drop.
Right.
But even then, like, they'll have to waste a card to get rid of it. Otherwise, it's going to kill one of their guys either way. So.
Yeah,
then,
can you imagine your opponent is sitting with an epidemic in their hand and they have a full board state and you plop this in front of their biggest creature? Right, like this could create some very interesting.
Yeah, they'd be better off just dropping the epidemic probably at that point.
Potentially.
Maybe, but just the value at level 3, reanimate your level 1s and level 2s. You could just clog up a board, clear out a board, clear out 2 creatures, and the 13/13 is gonna live to take out something. It's a big body.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I feel like this is just like a little assassin that's there to pick something off, which is kind of interesting. And then, like you mentioned it right off the bat, I will say I looked at this and it took me maybe 2 minutes to kind of go through the logical things in my head and be like, oh, yeah, well, the thing it's blocking is probably the thing that's going to die. But not always, of course.
Not necessarily, right? Yeah, like I was referring to, like, you will get an option to trigger unless you happen to put it in front of somebody who had 1 health left.
Right.
And then, well, I guess you still could then if they had anything else that was damaged, right?
Mm-hmm. Which that could be a pretty strong play if something's ping injured and you could put it in front of something with 1 health. That's extreme value.
Yeah, extreme value. The case where you get less value out of it is if you want to take out their big guy, but they have a little guy that's like a 2/3 that's down to a 2/2. They'll just get rid of that. But
so, question for you, Greg: how do you pronounce this card?
Crypthaunter.
Crypthaunter. Okay, I can get behind that. I just love how there's no space here, so that like we have to think about how we say this card. There's a lot of ways you could take it, but Crypthaunter seems correct to me.
Crypthaunter, yeah.
I do like that it's a spirit, right? I think spirit has a little bit more to be delved out. Like, spirit is innately, I think, a Uteran creature type, generally speaking, but with good representation in Necrium. And this just kind of continues that. So I would love to see some more spirit synergies, and this would go into that.
Yeah, I really like. A lot of the spirit synergies are strong. Blight Skull Bomb. but unless they reprint that in set 3. I think that's the
Um,
one where you sacrifice, your opponent sacrifices a creature, then however many creatures they have left remaining, your spirits get plus X plus X.
hmm. One.
So that'd be nice if they reprint that, put it in here. Let's move the camera back up. Let's read the haiku. Is that what that
Okay.
is?
Yep, that is.
All right, I'll let you read it. So I'll mispronounce stuff.
"'Tis but a small scratch. My wounds begin to fester. I can see the light." One thing for those out there, the haikus on the Stoneblade Discord, if you haven't seen, there is a haiku channel, and they open it sometimes that allows you to recommend haikus, get your haikus printed on cards. We know there's quite a few active players now. Only maybe a few, I wouldn't say quite a few, but 3 or 4 active players now that have haikus on cards that are in set 2, which is very cool that they recommended them earlier on, and now the cards are printed. So this would be a chance to get your little mark on Solforge Fusion as well.
This haiku is so fitting.
Yeah,
I like it.
I do too. I like the art. I did take some time to really zoom in on the art. And I'll say there were some things that at first bothered me about it. Like, it looks like, there's some squares off on the side that kind of drastically change the color. When you zoom in really close, you see it's like a portal or a doorway, obviously in a crypt. It really makes sense. But it just looked like a very stark line to me up in the top right, just left of the levels. But when you dig in there, it kind of looks good. I will say that the Necrium creature border with the skulls nestled in the pillars, like that's a thing that's been around on the other sets as well, but it really just fits well in with this card, so I love that feature as well. And then, the other new thing is the set 3 symbol. Right, earlier today, right before we recorded this, Lucas and Nick on their stream spoiled the first set 3 card, and I think this is the first time we've seen the set symbol, which is an eye, which is very interesting, with the set name being The Last Winter as well. We know that.
Yeah,
So
looking
cool.
forward to it. Yeah, that's an interesting card. Like, I think you got a lot of just. I don't think you'll feel bad getting this in a purple deck.
No, I don't know how you could feel bad.
Yeah, like it just seems to be a good card. Like you can it's really like it's still a good underdrop. Like
it's not level gating.
It's never bad. Yeah, like you're just like, okay.
There's only one creature that this doesn't work on, but can you imagine just dropping this in front of like a charge plated specimen or
camouflage bear,
a camouflage bear, you name it. A level 3 Furious Shard back, right? This just takes it out.
I mean, and this card does take some tactics to use. It takes a little strategy. You have to set the board up right because you want to make sure you're setting it up where you're being able to kill the creature that your opponent doesn't have the choice of who they're killing, right? So there is some of that in there, right? Like you want to go, okay, well, you're gonna have to get rid of a creature, but I want to make sure it's the one that I want to get rid of, or how can you manipulate the board to get it to be the most advantageous for you? But yeah, you're right. If they have a Krogius that's below 30 health, this card doesn't do as much anymore.
It doesn't work.
They just go, I'll just choose Krogius. All right, thanks.
Yep. Yeah.
But I mean, it's just it's just great value. So like you can just
All right. Well, awesome. I do want to throw a big shout out to Stoneblade. I really appreciate them getting content creators involved. I know other content creators are going to be spoiling cards in the very near future. This is very awesome of them to reach out to all of us and start giving cards and start getting, building hype in the community. Really coming out of Gen Con, I think we've got great motion moving forward, great communication. And this is just awesome. The more this continues, I'm super excited about the future of the game. Thanks for attending this lesson of the Forgeborn Finishing School. If you liked this video, please subscribe, comment, or consider donating to our Patreon account. I'm Kckid, and I look forward to our next lesson.